Broker Bulletin acknowledges the traditional custodians of all the lands across the country on which we record our podcast and pays its respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Broker Bulletin podcast, where better begins. Join us as we chat with brokers about what's working for them, what drives them, and the real challenges and wins that matter most right now.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Broker Bulletin. I am Reis from LMG Outsource. I often get questions from brokers and business owners who are curious about outsourcing and how it really works. To gain a clear understanding of the process, I recently sat down with Yazbek from Yaz Finance, who shared how his offshore support has been a game changer for his business. Enjoy the conversation. Jay, so first question for you today. Tell us a little bit about Yaz Finance and a little bit more about your business.
Thanks for having me. Look, I've been in business since 2003. Majority of our business is residential. We do some commercial as well as some equipment. Yeah, we're based in southwestern Sydney, and thanks for the opportunity to have a chat to you about outsourcing.
What's the composition of your business look like? How many people do you have? What is your clientele?
I guess I went through different stages in my business. When I first started, it was a struggle first at the start. On your own, you're trying to handle all parts of the business. But at the moment, I do have two staff, one full-time in the Philippines. It's part of the LMG Outsource team. And I do have another part-time person that's been with me for 22 years right now.
How long has your outsource person
The outsource now, it's almost a year. It'll be in April, it'll be 1 year. And it's a full-time person.
At what point did you realize that you needed support to grow your business?
From the get-go. Not long after, maybe within a year. Back then, it used to be that during the fax days, it was a little bit easier. But since then, obviously, as the technology improved and we started doing most of the hands-on, I realized the only way to grow the business, I need to have someone. That's the only way. I need to work on the business, and the office paperwork and the lodgements, it was consuming a lot of time. So to me, it was an important part. For me to grow, I need to have somebody. And so pretty much many, many years ago. But it's always been a struggle with finding the right staff and training them. And also that's been a major issue.
Was that first hire mostly because you were on the trajectory of scale? Or was it just hit a break point, too busy?
It was a combination. I think it was very stressful to keep up. You know, the phone is always ringing. You need to try to manage how the timeline, one is the compliance, but the other one also is deadlines. There's always cooling off period. There's deadlines, there's delays. It was just too much to deal with. So you really, when you get to a stage where you need to have someone, to me, that was the only way I can grow the business, by having someone with me on a regular basis, on a daily basis.
I know you've been in business for close to 23 years, and it's a lot different to how it was back then. What were the things that were time consuming back then that made you want to get that second person compared to what's time consuming today?
Right now, I think there's a lot more paperwork involved. There's more compliance. Back then, it was more about putting the application, faxing everything. The bank would do, the data entry will do, and they come back to you with a decision. But now it's just, the table have turned. We do pretty much everything. We do the valuations. We do the pricing. We do the online lodgement, the compliance, the servicing. There's just so much to do. Like, you can touch a file so many times and all of a sudden the day is finished and you feel you've done nothing. So that's challenging, big time. So that's not a way to grow your business, really.
And how do you break it up between task by task? What are your predominant tasks? And then what do you get your two different staff to look after?
Usually I'll make sure they work together. My assistant here, she only works 20 hours a week. So really it was not enough time for my volume to grow it, to handle. So I needed someone. But it's a team effort. So we work together. Basically, the offshore staff for me at the moment, she does everything from data entry to files to servicing to valuation, pricing, pretty much all the office work, all the paperwork stuff, compliance, lodgements, pretty much the majority of the work that needs to be done in the office. Yeah.
And you're offshore?
Together. So they both do the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So they split the work, but the offshore does the heavy lifting because she works full time.
How did you find that the onboarding process was joining LMG Outsource? How was that? Candidate interviews, the application form, how was that sort of for you?
When I started looking into outsourcing, initially I tried to hire another person here and it was challenging. You did a lot of advertisements and then all of a sudden you get resumes and then they don't show up for an appointment or for a meeting. And anyway, so then I started looking into outsourcing and I did look into different companies who I didn't feel fit my model because it would require a lot of training.
Yep.
And then finally, when I learned about LMG, I looked into it and I found, it's going to be best suit for me, because I guess once you don't know something, you don't know. But once you start learning about the model they have, the training the staff have, how easy it looks like it's going to be for my business, it made my decision easier. So the more I knew about them or what their offer is, the more I thought that's the way to go for me. Mm-hmm. That's how the decision was made up based on that.
And do you remember how the candidate presentation was?
Yeah.
How many interviews did you have?
Yeah, I have to admit that they're actually very, very professional. There's a lot of staff we deal with. They took enough information from me to find out what do they want, what do I want, what type of person, what type of experience do I need. They provide me with few resumes, and then we decided on which one I need to interview. They arranged the interview on videos. They were as well joining the interview as well. We're just monitoring what's happening. It was actually, I thought it was very, very professional. Finally, when we settled on a person, we decided on the time, and then the transition was very, very smooth, to be honest. Very smooth.
And when that person joined your team, did you find that there was minimal training that you had to actually do in regards to MyCRM, the loan process, application?
Yeah. The options that were available, which was easy. So the options were if I can choose from someone with little experience or someone with like 4 years experience. And that was my choice. So by choosing someone with more experience, even though the cost was a little bit more, but I think it made my job much easier because I really minimal training.
Yeah.
That person knew how to do MyCRM, which is what we use, knew how to use Apply Online, done everything that we do, pricing, valuations quickly, was very, very familiar. So it was pretty blessing, to be honest, only because the training that I did not have to worry about it.
And how do you manage your communication with your offshore team on a day-to-day basis? What's your routine with that?
Obviously, MyCRM is the main, but then also we use Google Drive. We share Google Drive. We do Google Chat on my phone, on Google Chat, wherever I am. If I have any questions, she give me a call. We have just a shared email. So the main office email that she uses, actually, I get to see everything in and out. So everything that goes out, I'll see it, and I only just step in if I need to. Yeah. So all the decisions, the approvals, the communication with the clients, I'll just look at it. And if I need to say something, I'll just step in. Otherwise, she's trained now what she needs to do with every situation.
Do you get her involved in a lot of onshore team activities? Obviously, you can't get her here.
Yes.
But is it a lot of when a lender comes into your office, do you get her to sit in on that? Does she speak to BDMs?
Not that part. No, I try to get her to stay out of that. Mostly I let her focus on what she needs to do, which is the paperwork, the lodgements, the serviceability, keeping the clients up to date on what's happening, and I'll take care of the other part.
Does she contact your clients over the phone or email?
No, just emails. Yeah, there's no reason. If there's a call needs to be made, I like to be the person talking to a client because it's a personal relationship, but she does all the communication. And in all honesty, most of my clients believe or done the assumption that she works in my office. They have no idea where she's working from. So one time they asked me, say hi to Henny or can I talk to her just to say thank you?
Yeah.
So yeah, to them, it's just like one team, one office.
Yeah. When you were hiring, what were the key things that you were looking for in a person that was in offshore?
Number one was experience. Yeah. Number one, trained, familiar with our online softwares, the CRM system, work with other brokers where I just did not have to do all the initial training. Yeah, reliable person, someone have a lot of recommendations. And yeah, that was really for me, that was just very important. I didn't want anyone just coming out of the blue and I have to train them. That was very important.
So do you remember the time frame from application or first discovery meeting to actually having that person in your team? Do you remember how long that took?
Yeah, it was fairly quick actually. Initially they told me it could take up to a month because I was looking for someone more experienced. But within less than 2 weeks, they're giving me 3 resumes. In all honesty, I selected the first person, but then about a month later, I realized that person is not for me. So I immediately contacted them, and then right away they moved them somewhere else. And they gave me a few days. They put on few resumes. We did the interviews and I decided for that second person. But during that time, that person was continuing to work with me. Yeah. Okay. So I had no break immediately. And that person was really, so far, has been the right person. She's been with me now for just under a year. So
when you requested for a replacement, that person that you were wanting to replace stayed in your business until you found someone new?
Yeah, correct.
So that obviously helped with business continuity and whatnot?
Correct, yeah.
And when you found a new person, did that old person go off your team straight away, or did they do?
No, right away. So I've made the decision on what needs to be done, and then that person, they moved them on to another team based on the availability of that new person. We made the decision immediately, just make the change, and it was great. It was actually, they were very helpful. They were very supportive. I've noticed that there's more than one person getting involved to try to make this happen fairly quickly. They showed a lot of interest into finding a solution right away. And there was no real cost really. In terms of cost, absolutely, there's no, it just immediately they just jump on, and then really it was actually great to see. And I'm just saying this because I've experienced it. I have no reason to say that, but it's really great to see that. It was definitely highly recommended.
So with your close to 12-month experience with LMG Outsourcing, what would your top tips be into keeping your offshore staff engaged?
Yeah, look, it's very important to be a bit flexible. But in terms of engagement, I think we just don't stay in their face all day. So we do have video chat, but we cut it most of the time. So I'll give an assignment and then I'll let her do what she wants to do. You can't put certain deadlines and timelines because obviously it's very important. Some different people work different way. So what it may take me 10 minutes, it may take the other person 5 or 30. But to me, everything has been working as expected in terms of timeline. I have to give or feedback to the team every week about that person. There's a feedback questionnaires I have to complete and an assessment, and they do team meetings to give that person a feedback. So really, it's just a continued development from my end and from the LMG Outsource team as well, because they continue to do regular training for them.
In regards to your own specific KPIs, business KPIs, how do you relate that back to your outsource staff member, and how does she help you achieve those KPIs?
Look, I think that part, to be honest with you, I did underestimate the impact on my business. When I first started, it was more about taking the pressure, free up some of my time. But since then, as this happened, I realized that finally I have time to work on my business. So all of a sudden, from doing, a certain number of settlements, I realized I'm doing more. All of a sudden, I'm settling more. I'm getting a lot more inquiries just because it gave me the time to chat to more clients that I haven't spoken to for 3-4 years. All of a sudden, I have the time to do it. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. My business improved without even just by looking at the number of inquiries that I get on a weekly basis. Tremendous. So I underestimated it, but I think it's the best decision I made.
Numbers wise, right? Specific numbers. Do you have numbers that you try and achieve? Is it quarterly, monthly? And how do you relay that back to her to try and help you hit those numbers?
I think it's important. It's more about the service that we provide to our clients. To me, if I do my job right, I make sure between me and my staff that at the end of the transaction, my goal is to make sure this client, if you ever need any finance, come back to me. I don't want to give him a reason to look for someone else. But to do that, obviously, we go a little bit beyond. So I make sure this person, we gave him a checklist. She followed the checklist promptly. Regular updates. So at every stage of the process, I gave her a checklist and then she followed the checklist. And to do that, it helped me get a lot of good feedback from my clients. And I think going forward, there's always more improvement to be made. But I think that's critical. Regular communication, not overload them, but at the same time, stay on top of things and don't make them wonder, what's happening. And she's been a key part of that because she took all that pressure from me to keep the client up to date. And hey, just to let you know, I got a conditional, or just let you know. So she does all of that and just free up most of my time.
Yeah.
So it's more pressure that's taken off me and time that really gave me the time to work on the business. And, if you ask me now what my goal, my goal is to continue to grow 20-25% every year. And it's very, very doable because I can technically add another person because the outsourcing team proved to me that it's definitely a great way to reduce the cost from having a full-time person in the office. Not that you have to have the wage difference, but also the cost in having an office and having all your needs that are in-office staff needs. It's a big advantage to have to grow the business.
Now, I'm not too sure if you're aware of this or not, but LMG Outsourcing team, we have a lot of in-house huddles and activities, and we do a lot of the engagement for you to obviously keep our staff happy and entertained and work everyone together. Has your staff ever told you anything about that, what we've provided, and any feedback on that? So probably the biggest one that comes to mind would be in the end of year Christmas party that we would have held. Was your staff participating in that? And what feedback did she give you?
based on the conversation we have, she seems very happy to be as part of the LMG Outsource. They're supportive on many fronts. I think they do regular meetings. They do a lot of activities, and so far it's been very positive from her. And I think that makes the mood good at work. So it's not like there's no real pressure. There's time to just lay back and just enjoy the time. It could be maybe half a day or whatever it may be. But yeah, so far everything I've heard from her about being part of LMG Outsource has been very positive.
Does it make it a little bit easier for you as well not to have to worry about staff engagement, activities and stuff? Because obviously on onshore, you're having to constantly provide that. But having someone that does that for you with HR, activities, does it make you feel a little bit more relieved and easier to actually just say, yeah, do what you got to do and I'll focus on my business?
Yeah, look, I agree. I think for small business, sometimes you may find it hard to actually find the time to do it or to plan it. But yeah, look, I think it's very important to be part of this culture. And I think, from what I see, from what I read, from what I hear, it's, everything's positive about that part. So that takes the pressure definitely from me to worry about these things as well.
If a broker was to come to you today and say, I'm looking to offshore, what are your top 3 tips? What would you tell that broker? It was first time hire. Obviously, you've got 2 people in your team. First time hire, what would you say your top 3 tips would be for the outsource?
I think for different brokers, so if someone is actually not thinking of outsourcing, but just to continue doing their own work, my opinion, my advice would be, I think it's an expensive business needs to have to grow. We all know that, we need to work on the business, not in the business. That's the only way to increase volume. In order to answer your question about what advice, look, just tell them exactly what you want. And if you're not happy with the staff, just let them. They'll replace them for you. If you want them trained, you want to train them your way, you have the option. So whether you want to train them your way or you want them trained, whether you want someone with little experience, more experience, you can select. And the way, what I know about the system is you can select someone to work a day or a week. I'd take someone full-time every day of the week. So my advice, take on someone full-time, take someone experienced or at least some experience, at least 2 years experience, because they've done all the dirty work pretty much.
Yeah, we try and hire people that have only 2 years of experience working in the Australian market anyway. So we try and minimize all that initial stuff for the brokers. But is there anything that you know now that you wished before you had started outsourcing that would have made your experience probably better than what it was, or less time in training?
Yeah, look, I think I've struggled for many years to have the right staff. There's always issues training them. What do they know? There's different people come with different baggage. And it's challenging. I mean, the finance industry is very challenging because you train some people and a lot of them, once they know, they become their own brokers and they leave you and all of a sudden you have to start again. But I think what I find is that to me, it was just a perfect fit. I wish I knew about it before. It probably was not available as it is right now. But I think the more I start learning about it, the more I find that it's a must-have in my business.
And any do's and don'ts that you would recommend?
Don't procrastinate, do it.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's it.
Well said. Well said. Well, Jay, thank you so much for coming in, taking the time out of your busy schedule to have this interview with myself. It's a pleasure meeting you face to face. And I know you're a big advocate of our product and our service. So again, thank you so much for coming.
No worries. Thank you very much. And just want to say one thing that if any broker that may be in doubt or have any questions, I'm available to answer any questions or give my any other advice or opinion. I'm available anytime.
Thank you so much for listening in. I hope it's been of value. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. If you have a topic you want us to discuss on an upcoming episode of the podcast, please email us at brokerbulletin@lmg.broker or DM us on Instagram at lmg.broker, and our producers will make sure to answer your questions ASAP. If you like this podcast, make sure you rate and follow us on your favorite podcast store. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Broker Bulletin. We would hate for you to miss an episode. Subscribe to Broker Bulletin in your favorite podcast app. Has this episode been helpful? We'd love you to rate and review us. It'll help us deliver content that's useful to you and help others discover us. If you have great ideas for topics worth tackling or have burning questions you'd like addressed on an upcoming episode, reach out. Links in the show notes. See you next time.